Hello and welcome to an open source live code hangout. We're going to be working on the Workouts app. It's a personal training application built with Svelte. It allows you to define several types of exercises with a little bit of description, target muscles, and related equipment. They're not always required. We'll come to that in a moment. Then once these exercises are defined in the library, you can generate random workouts with a certain number of exercises. If you only got time for 2, for example. This source code is available on GitHub, github.com/Briley/workouts. If you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to open them as discussion items or issues here. And feel free to use this code. It's open source under the Apache 2 license. The goal of this app is to be an offline first app, no subscription service necessary. It's just a personal trainer workout generator at this point. And the next step will be to add workout tracking. Since this version of the app is designed to be offline first, we need to kind of do a little bit of research in today's session to see what kind of database storage we can use locally in the browser. Now, Svelte has some options for us that we might consider. I think, well, let's just go take a look. And I know there's native web storage options. There's at least 2 of those. So we'll just go to the Svelte docs, SvelteKit we're using to develop this app. And let's see what its best practices are. If we search for database, I believe it's under adapters, now that I think of it. It doesn't ship with these adapters out of the box. It doesn't assume you need a database, but there was either an adapter or an integration. So adapters are for the content when you build content and deploy it. This site is statically generated, so it does pose some challenges. And I have this error relating to server rendering that I need to enable in order to statically generate this in GitHub pages. So maybe I can figure this error out, but nonetheless, the app is working and it's deployed. And essentially, it's a client rendered app. And so this is the approach we needed to run. We enabled the adapter static, and for some reason, when I added this to the layout, it's causing errors in the GitHub pages deployment. It's rendering a white screen. Locally, it works fine. So I think I've got something wrong with my GitHub deployment script. We'll test it out later. Nonetheless, let's continue with development. So I recall when I went to the getting started, there was a list of integrations. There we go. These are adders. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. And one of the adders was Drizzle database. So I'm just going to see what its sort of recommended default is. And Drizzle is a multi-backend database ORM for JavaScript. Drizzle. Let's see if it's popular. No, of course not. Drizzle ORM for JavaScript and TypeScript. And I don't want to run a backend for this app. So I need something that runs in the browser. Looking for a web SQLite. I'll just post this link to the repo here. Dexy, IndexedDB, Tower. And this is interesting. I am considering making mobile apps at least with Svelte. Desktop maybe. Web SQL or IndexedDB, local forge. So I don't know if just a key value storage is good or necessary here, or I probably will need more possibly relational data, but at the very least, just document storage. So we'll have to also scope this out, or write a little bit of a spec to see and to decide what's the best approach. Dexy integrates front-end frameworks, query the database without boilerplate, and let your components So you create a database, and it's like a document. Okay, so you're defining the schema. You're adding to it. Live queries. It's got svelte instructions. Cool. Becomes observable. I like it. Okay, so that's a good option. It's got a number of stars. That's an interesting indicator. Let's take a look at the health. So 3 weeks ago, the latest commit. Recent release 4. If they're using Simver, 4 significant or major versions, which can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. It's a sign of maybe maturity, but also breaking things, backwards compatibility, which is what that signals. Not necessarily bad, but if I see like version 18 in a 3-year-old project, or something like that, even 5 years, is a lot of backwards breaking changes that can cause you to start becoming more focused on framework level development, keeping your dependencies up to date than actually developing your project. So one thing I like to do is check in and to see the contributors, how frequently and how many there are, how many people are contributing in a significant way to the project. For example, in the last year is usually a good sign. So like 20, okay. It's been around for a while, so that's interesting, 2016. And if we look in just maybe the last year or so, it has one primary contributor with over, I think primary, it's a rough thing, but like more than 10 commits or something like that. Commits can be big or small. It's not, there's no absolute way of gauging that, but usually I like to see multiple contributors who are actively maintaining not just single commit or like a single pull request or whatever, but like multiple efforts. So these are sort of, single feature or pull request type commits. So I would say this has one active maintainer who's diminishing their activity on the project. I'm not trying to judge, just trying to assess, which is a form of judgment, the fitness of this project for the app. This is a hobby app too, so maybe it doesn't hurt to use a dependency that will evaporate. But the data I'll need to export or something like that. Also, the browser has a built-in data store, so IndexedDB. If we can just use that and not have to worry about, those are built into the browser and they're web standards, so they are designed for longevity. IndexedDB, but with promises. Okay, so that's a good sign. Last month, used by a lot, 8 million projects, people, or it's been downloaded 8 million times. What does this used by mean? This is new to me. Dependence. 8 million repositories depending on this. Wow. Cool. That's a good sign. At least it's well positioned and well connected. TypeScript, JavaScript, and HTML, IndexedDB, so it's built on standards. So even if this project goes away, the data is still in IndexedDB. I think I would be able to switch out library, migrate to a different. Okay, so let's just take a look at the. So I'm going to go ahead and close Dexy.js. I don't have a good feeling or intuition that it would be like a long-term solution. Even for a hobby project, I think it is nice to think a little bit long-term. Okay, so one primary maintainer, it's been around for a while, so this is interesting. But in the last year, hasn't had much activity. Now, it's not inherently a bad thing if it's got a stable web standard technology. It doesn't necessarily have to go through major changes. One thing I'll just check. So we're in the same situation though with a single maintainer who is somewhat active. I don't have to use a library. And I was just checking the Towery. I believe Towery can be used for cross-platform mobile. So that's cool. I'll keep this in the back of my mind, and maybe we'll do a tutorial series on how Towery works, building cross-platform apps with Towery. I think there are some limitations. It's using the web views, so some of the behavior and functionality could differ depending on your platform and the capabilities of the platform native web view, if I recall. But nonetheless, this is not what we're looking for right now. In a future iteration of this project, we might want to publish that in an app store, and I'll try to remember Towery. Local forage, offline first, 8 months ago, so not recent, a long time ago release. Okay, so that's what I found from this one Reddit store. Okay, so let's try just SvelteKit. Let's see. And it doesn't have to be specific to SvelteKit. So we'll just go to the web API and see what we can do with IndexedDB. So let's create a branch here. I guess we can try getting to the code. Just as a quick experiment, since we're in a branch, we can always roll back. I believe what IndexedDB is the appropriate solution here. One thing it might be good to do is ask Claude or Perplexity while we have those tools available. I can see if I can give it access to my... Well, let's try one more time. Maybe it's indexing those workouts. Maybe I have too many workouts. Granted, TypeScript and Svelte, they're not kind of necessarily web standards, but TypeScript may be aligned in steering the future of JavaScript evolution. So I'll read this prompt in a moment. About this schema here, it'll be a workout consisting of a list of exercise IDs. Or does it need to do that? Can it just be a list of exercises I've done and the date I did them? And then we can do aggregations based on that, sort of like an event stream. Do I need to combine them into a workout? Not quite, I guess not. There may be, if I need that later, I can look for exercises that were marked as completed in a time window and sort of assume that those were part of a workout, like within 30 minutes or an hour of one another, and then compose that into an entity. But at the start, I think really going with an idea of minimalism, I would just start with the specific exercise that we did, the ID of that exercise. So we're just going to start with muscle recovery. So I'm developing a personal, let's see here. Okay, so this is the prompt. I'm developing a personal workout tracking app with TypeScript, Svelte, and web platform technologies. I'm trying to build with an eye for long-term sustainability and maintainability, particularly by using web standards where possible. I'd like for the app to use only local data, so no server backend is needed. But we need to store some historic workouts data, such as the exercise ID and date, which is a date time, in case I need to do that windowing aggregation. These can later be aggregated into charts and possibly a composite workout entity, but for starters, they are only needed to generate a history of recent exercises to measure muscle recovery. And this muscle recovery can be used when generating workouts. So what I want to do is maybe start with a GitHub issue that kind of fleshes out. Let's use thinking mode, and let's start with, so we just want to start first with the problem. Let's start by creating a GitHub issue that describes the feature request before diving into any code or specific solutions. Start with a detailed overview and exploration of the problem so we have a clear picture of what we're trying to achieve. So the problem space. Yeah, I guess formals. All right. For a GitHub issue. I hope it seems good. So let's go for it and see what we get. So I did mention some specific technologies and that should serve as constraints when describing the issue, not only in the problem space, but also a little bit of the solution space. We need to implement a local storage mechanism for our personal workout tracking application that will store exercise history and enable muscle recovery tracking. This feature will allow users to maintain a history of their workouts without requiring a server backend, while providing intelligent workout recommendations based on muscle recovery status. So this is cool. It's not just random. We're getting into a little bit more personalized and intelligent workout recommendation space. Open source. Our workout application currently lacks persistence for tracking user exercise history. Without this historical data, we cannot display a user's workout history, track which muscle groups have been recently exercised, generate balanced workout recommendations that prevent overtraining specific muscle groups, visualize progress over time. Users need a system that automatically tracks their exercise history and provides guidance on which muscle groups are ready for training, encouraging a balanced approach to fitness that promotes full body engagement and proper recovery. User stories. Cool. As a user, I want my completed workouts to be saved locally so I don't lose my exercise history. As a user, I want to see which muscle groups I've recently trained so I can make informed decisions about my next workout. As a user, I want the app to recommend exercises based on muscle recovery status so I can maintain a balanced training schedule. As a user, I want to view charts of my workout history so I can track my progress over time. Technical considerations. Data storage. We need to store at a minimum exercise records with an ID, a date time, and possibly sets, reps, and weights. This is true. I am planning to extend the model, but at first I just want to get the basic moving parts in there to see if we can get the history working, and then we can make more advanced recommendations, such as let's do these exercises today, and this was your previous number of sets and weight that you added, so it can automatically complete those. And encourage also progress in strength building, for example. Muscle group associations for each exercise. Recovery status for muscle groups. Storage options. IndexedDB, local storage, web storage API. Okay. And pros and cons of each. Data structure. We need to determine how to structure a relationship between exercises and muscle groups. Okay. And that's actually, we'll look at the document, the data structure in a moment. But that is an attribute of the exercise. Basically an enum, a list of values. How to calculate and store recovery status. How to handle data migrations. This is an important consideration if we update the schema in future releases. Proposed approach. IndexedDB is our primary mechanism because we need structured data and relationships. Potential for significant data accumulation over time. So you can't just use like a local store key value and 5-minute limit, although that's quite a lot of data, but key value pairs is a pretty big limitation. Data is lost when the session ends, so long-term history would be lost, and I think that'd be frustrating. So async API won't block the main thread. Cool. Complex queries. Create database exercises, which we have as TypeScript definitions, and yeah, it's like a JSON thing with schema and stuff. So we would then need to import those into the database, perhaps. Workout entries, muscle groups. So we've done at least the muscle group and exercises schemas, but then we need to hook it to IndexedDB and figure out what's the requirement for storing data versus having the data schema available at runtime to generate charts. Implement a data access layer abstracts the storage implementation details so we can easily switch mechanisms. Isolates the storage logic from UI components, and we can cache the output if performance is an issue. Interesting. Recover calculation logic. So which muscles are in recovery based on previous workouts? Yeah. We can probably split that into a separate issue, the whole muscle recovery. First thing is just to get the history, then get the history while keeping in mind the uses. So muscle recovery is the first use case, but don't try to do all that at once. So acceptance criteria. User workout data persists between sessions. History is viewable by the user. Muscle recovery status is calculated. Let's think if that should be split. It may be simple, but it may also be complicated enough that it could derail the progress. In any case, I can break this down work-wise into multiple pull requests. Workout recommendations exclude muscle groups that haven't adequately recovered. System handles first-time use gracefully. Okay, actually, let me just ask. Let's split the muscle recovery feature for development into a separate issue so we can focus on the initial data storage and simple workout history UI. So we want to have a full feature here, but not too much. We've explored the hypothetical use cases for the data mainly to ensure our approach and schema will support the use cases, while the actual development needs to be divided into smaller tasks. Good. Okay, so now it's going to simplify that. Fewer user stories. Interesting. It's getting a bit more detailed about the workout entry. Yeah, ID, date, time, exercise ID, sets, reps, weight, notes. Okay, nice. And we'll have to look at the schema for a workout entry because some of those are time-based. For example, treadmill, 16 minutes, or just running 16 minutes, and then the equipment would be the treadmill. It's a bit of a new problem domain, so I'm still fleshing out the data model. Okay, we'll add this because we already have the workout generation feature. So we'll have two issues basically here. And we'll just go over here to the repo. Yeah, and this kind of serves as a historic record of like, what we were trying to achieve and in what order we did it, what pull requests solved it. So it can be useful to show how the development process goes. I think it was pretty good. enhancement. Yeah, data import and export is going to be a separate issue, but I see the value in that. Chronological order. Users can view detailed information about the individual past workouts. This isn't one challenge. We're mixing the word workout and exercise, which may not be so bad from like a casual conversational approach, but when we get into the implementation, a workout consists of multiple exercises with some metadata, but exercise is actually separate entity of its own. An exercise definition is like the description and title mentions for a workout. Then you have an exercise, a workout exercise that you did during a session, and you have a workout that has multiple workout exercises. So this is just part of data modeling, and where when we're doing domain specific development, we have to kind of get clear about our terminology and how sometimes abstract entities relate to each other, abstract concepts and concrete things. So an exercise is sort of an abstract thing that gives you some instructions, while when you do the exercise, it's a bit more concrete. It's physical activity, and those both need to be represented in the same solution, in the same software solution. Okay, so it might seem like splitting hairs between the word workout and word exercise, but it's like key to data modeling, key aspect of data modeling. Nonetheless, I think this is pretty good. Usually GitHub issues don't have to be so exacting. But when you go into like software development, or at least specification, then you have to get more accurate and clear. So we'll create this. It's pretty good overall. It maintains the use cases and some schema suggestions, which I might not want to implement, but if we're using a large language model, we need to be careful to not include those in the prompt, because it'll just do that, and we might not be ready for those steps. Okay, so the second one is here, and we'll read through this in a moment. I'll just take a quick break. Okay, thanks for your patience. Implement muscle recovery tracking and smart workout generation. This feature will leverage our workout history data to track muscle recovery status and enhance our workout generation system to recommend exercises based on recovery state. This enhancement will help users maintain balanced training routines by preventing overtraining specific muscle groups. Currently, our workout generation doesn't count for muscle recovery, which can lead to suboptimal training routines where the same muscle groups are exercised too frequently. This issue aims to implement a muscle recovery tracking system based on workout history, integrate recovery data into the workout generation algorithm, provide visual feedback to users about their muscle recovery status. That's an interesting one. We'll need to think how to show the muscle recovery, and you probably want a picture of like a human body with the muscles highlighted that are good, maybe, or that are tired, fatigued or whatever. So that will require some design and, probably graphic design, and in a way that uses a standard like SVG or Canvas that we can dynamically, indicate the recovery status. The most simple way would be a table, like from a developer standpoint, but we need to think of the user experience, and a table isn't so nice of a user experience. It's good enough for a minimum viable feature. We'll come back to that. These are all incremental improvements, though. That's the key. We don't have to have perfection. We can just take that step and continue iterating over time. As a user, I want to see which muscle groups need recovery time so I can plan my workouts accordingly. Okay, so this is showing the ones that are tired. As a user, I want the workout generator to automatically consider my muscle recovery status so I can receive balanced workout recommendations. This is algorithmic. As a user, I want visual indicators of muscle recovery status for different muscle groups so I can understand my body's readiness at a glance. So this comes back to the UX, and we start with a table with, for example, color-coded muscle groups. This assumes that the user can map those texts, the name of the muscle group, into like a visual internal representation of the part of their body that's working out. So they have some knowledge of anatomy. We're using pretty straightforward language, but and typically people who are exercising will have an awareness of these types of muscle groups that we're using. So that shouldn't be too hard, but ideally you would have a nice visual representation of the body, like I was mentioning. We'll implement a recovery tracking system that associates exercises with primary and secondary muscle groups. Okay, so now this is creating subgroupings. Interesting. Calculates recovery periods based on exercise intensity, okay, volume, and establish recovery guidelines. So this is already more complex. I was just thinking recency. You worked your abs yesterday, so you don't need to do that today. Whereas intensity and volume, those are more, we'd have to have the advanced data model, the reps and sets, which then you need a workout. Might not need a workout entity for that, but we would at least need the data model to account for those. So I don't know if this is feasible. We'll take a look at that. It's optional. Updates recovery status based on new recorded workouts. Provides an API for querying recovery status for workout generation. And that could probably be attached to the database abstraction, however we define that, like the database service or controller or something like that, what the term would be. We'll find out. Query muscle recovery status before recommending exercises, workout generation algorithm. Prioritize exercises for recovered muscle groups. Include certain muscle groups less frequently based on recovery needs. So this is interesting. I think what it's getting at is that some muscles take longer to recover than others. So we would need to track, so we would need like somebody who's experienced with like personal training or something like sports medicine to guide this feature development over time. But initially I'm just going to use recency, a very simple, simplistic approach, naive approach, just because I don't know that much about it. And I just want to get the initial feature iteration complete. So balance workouts. So interface, display human body diagram. That's with color-coded recovery status by muscle group. That's going to be the challenging one. Show estimated recovery time for recently trained muscles. Integrate recovery information and workout planning screens. Extend the database schema to track muscle groups and their associations with exercises. Well, not all of this holds, but let's go. It's like 80% there. It's really good. We'll create a new issue right here. Issue number 2. So we need some specialist knowledge here. Optional. Minimum. So some kind of a table or page that lists the muscle groups with name in a sorting order that makes sense. Alphabetical could be. The initial idea. Estimated recovery time for each recently trained muscles. If we're just using a time-based thing, it would be very, 1 day remaining or something. Integrate recovery information into workout planning screens. Okay. Extend the database. Just simple algorithm. Looks at how many days ago. Just very, very simple, bare bones. System accurately. Unit tests. Hey, good. Yeah, we have to have that. And a lot of this we should actually do at the service layer with integration tests before even the UI. The UI should just be very thin, just displaying the data, but no business logic there. Yeah, we'll take a look at the implementation details. So an enhancement. Oh, we're going to label these as help wanted good first issue in case somebody's interested. We're not using these estimations. Extra, yeah, and I think this recovery status is a dynamic. And if it's just querying the last n days for exercises, then that's just a pretty dynamic thing that can happen at runtime. Yeah. If it gets heavier, then we would look at some kind of caching strategy, or, you know, like creating a database table or entity. Yeah. So I'd say we're good to go. We got 2 issues. Now, we've broken down our work. We looked a little bit 2 steps down the road. These are big steps, mediums. I don't know how big they are. They're non-trivial though. Not trivial compared to just a static web page. So let's take a look at implementing one of the tasks. I'll take a quick break and then we'll get to some coding. Continue. Implement local storage for workout history with basic UI. Local storage is kind of technology specific. It might be confusing, but we are specifically going to look at IndexedDB. So we'll come back here to the project. We'll just call this workout history or exercise history. I'll commit this, but I think I'm going to have to reconsider this when I deploy to GitHub pages or change my deployment strategy. Okay, so now we're going to use Copilot edits and we're going to use agent mode. So I'm going to create a new conversation. This is experimental and it's only available currently in VS Code Insiders. So the first prompt I'll ask for is, let me ask Claude for a little bit of help architecturally. So this is the problem with Claude. Synchronizing the context is challenging. And apparently I've got so many repos and organizations that Claude doesn't have that. It's not able to list them all, and I can't get to the one that I'm working with. So let's just try with Claude here. It is available. So I just said to Claude, please create a succinct prompt for an assistive agent to scaffold an IndexedDB abstraction layer in my project. This is the first step of development, so it doesn't need too much detail other than the software architecture for a TypeScript project using SvelteKit, but should be abstract from the framework. So this is giving me a whole GitHub issue. Let's take almost IndexedDB abstraction layer for TypeScript workout tracking application. Create a modular IndexedDB abstraction layer for a workout tracking application built with TypeScript and SvelteKit. Okay, so that's already implicit, but okay. The implementation should be framework agnostic and follow these architectural requirements. Database service, repository pattern, CRUD, database initialization and versioning. 'Ooh, crazy. Is there already... a library that does this for us that's well maintained. I should just look, because I don't want to invent an ORM or whatever for IndexedDB if it exists, if there's a mature and well-maintained project. So we'll just use Perplexity to do a little bit of research here for an IndexedDB ORM with CRUD, migrations, initialization, error handling, versioning, schema definitions, and TypeScript. We can just use IndexedDB ourselves with a general setup, pretty low level, creating an ORM, using IndexedDB ORM. If that exists, then that's cool. Creating your own ORM, I don't want to do that. And versioning, schema definition. I mean, it's not a whole lot, but there are some surprising footguns when we get to the level, the framework level, and usually I just have found I don't want to solve all those. I want to see if there's an existing solution. So it didn't, it sort of gave me the implementation, which is cool, but let's find out. It's promise-based 6 years ago, so that's not going to cut it. 2 years ago, no. Now I think we did look at IDB last month, single development solution. It does have, hey, Agent Chronicles, how are you doing today? Perplexity. It's sort of like a search engine using an AI, large language model to help summarize the results. So it's kind of a question and answer interface, which is usually what I'm after when I search for something. I don't need a bunch of like random results that may have like search engine optimization, spam, and advertisement, and cookie consent banners and weirdness. I just need sort of like an answer or guidance. And so Perplexity just answers the question. And when you need the references, it has them linked right there. So it's source-based. You can kind of have more trust that it's an authentic or like it's a correct answer by checking the sources. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's free to use. Perplexity AI. They have a free version of that. And you get like, I don't know, a bunch of questions a day. Here's the website, if that's helpful. Yeah, and I really like it too for research. It's, what's the word for that? Offline first. It's just offline first, but there was some other word, some Jamstack. Jack, what's Jamstack? I've been out of this sort of front end and web development stuff for a while. Architectural approach decouples the web experience layer from the data and business logic, improving flexibility, scalability, and performance and maintainability. Removes the need for business logic to dictate the web experience. Okay. I don't know if that's what I'm thinking of, but offline first is what I'm thinking of. So offline first, deep research it. Now check this out. The first question I asked, it just did a quick search and retrieved some top answers and summarized them, so the top results. Deep research takes a little bit more time, but it breaks down your question into a research hypothesis or research, a series of research questions. So I need to search the web to find a comparison of TypeScript ORMs that support local storage for offline first applications. So it sort of identified the problem. This will help me identify various options and their features. And notice it's searching dev2, some websites, it looks on Reddit. You can tell it, I think, where to search. Social media, for example. And now it found some results discussing those and support local storage and offline first. Specifically, I discovered that libraries like RxDB and Dexy.js are designed for the offline capabilities. So then it still needed to gather some more comparison details so that we can have the requested output as a comparison table. And now it got various information on those, including the libraries. Yeah, so you can see it's multi-step. Oh, there's ads at the bottom. Okay. Are they invasive? Like, does it block the output? That is an annoying thing that the advertisement-driven web, it's like if we're using a free service, then we're the product. We are the product. So either our attention or, basically attention, it becomes the currency because the advertisement is wanting our attention and clicks and things like that, click-throughs. Yeah, right now I'm subscribing to Perplexity because it's done so much helpful work for me and saved so much time, especially with this deep research mode, that if I'm able to subscribe, then I'll try to do that. But I think even deep research is available in the free tier as well. Which AI do I pay for? Currently, Claude is really good. Just such high quality output for writing and code generation. I'm using GitHub Copilot, but through their open source program, which qualifies you for free access if you're an active open source maintainer and contributor. So that's nice. I highly recommend it. And we're going to continue using that during this session. You'll see the Copilot agent mode. And then in order to organize my work and everything, I just recently got Google Workspace. But you can also access Google One. They have an AI called Gemini, and it's integrated in all of the Google Workspace tools like Spreadsheet and Word Processor. And it also has just a standalone chat interface. So since I'm using Workspace to organize my work, like social media, brainstorming ideas, and all this kind of stuff, and Gemini is included in that, I do use that sometimes. Gemini also has a deep research feature. Oops, Twitch ad. Hey, thanks for I think that's a subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. What event was that? Twitch activity feed. Wow, thanks for the follow. I appreciate that, Agent Chronicles. It's nice to see familiar faces. Cool. Oops. Wait a minute. All right, cool. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. I was talking about Gemini. It also has a deep research mode. I can show you the Gemini real quick if you want to just see what it looks like. So here's Gemini chat, and it's got an app. So again, I use this as part of my Google Workspace. I moved all my online work to Google Workspace. And so let's go ahead and compare, for example, the question I asked, perplexity. Now Gemini has multiple models. Gemini Advanced Flash, is one of the highest ranked models, and most least expensive in terms of the cost per token input and output. It's like one of the highest quality and lowest cost ones. And they're a little bit slightly older generation has also this deep research feature. I'll just show you that one real quick. So I'm going to send the same query, and it's going to break that down into a research series of research questions. Find TypeScript ORMs that support local storage. See, that's what I was thinking. Local storage was a bit of a miss, but IndexedDB is what I'm after. So let me just edit this plan. We don't need local storage, just IndexedDB. And basically, Gemini was the first model, I think, to include this deep research feature. So it's going to break my research question down into a series of sub-questions. Find TypeScript ORMs that support IndexedDB for each one. Find the following information: name, features, pros, cons, popularity, documentation, such and such. Create a comparison table. So then we'll start this research, and it's rolling. The whole Google Workspace subscription with all the apps and, spreadsheet, document, word processor, slideshow, image generation, generative AI, video editing, or video generation, and even app generation. There's a bunch of tools that are included with that. All of those are less than one generative AI, less than Perplexity, less than Claude, less than OpenAI. So if you just were after one tool, I would think to consider a Google Workspace account or a Google One subscription. Google Workspace includes all those apps. Even though it sounds like it's geared towards organizations, you can have a personal Google Workspace, save some money, access a bunch of tools. And then there's also this thing, Google AI Studio, that has some very interesting features. And one of these features is you can stream real time, and you can show it your screen. You can show it what's on your screen, and it'll actually walk you through questions that you can ask it about, like tools you're using like Photoshop or DaVinci Resolve or Blender 3D. It can see your screen and help you with like real-time support and tutorials and guidance. We're not going to get into that on this stream, but I'm just putting it out there. This is also part of the Google Workspace, and it's relatively cheap if you have a bit of a budget for AI tools and API calls. You can use usually multi-models. I don't have those models enabled in my Workspace account, but let's come back here real quick. Okay, so you can see one thing, the deep research for Gemini 1.5 is slower than Perplexity much. We're only about a quarter of the way through the research, but it found 92 websites for me. So the time it's taking is saving me probably 5 or 10 times that of reading all of these and compiling the information. So that's where I start to see these tools, a little bit of investment as magnifying my work. So, okay, so Jamstack, let's close a little bit of these tabs and come back. So we're not going to use Dexy. We're going to leave MDN open. It didn't seem like Drizzle has is more back-end oriented. I need a client database. I'm going to ask the docs. This is cool too. Another example of these generative AI is cropping up. Based on my knowledge of Drizzle, with Drizzle supports various databases, including these server-side and Terso. Don't have specific information about IndexedDB support. So I'm going to rule out Drizzle, even though there's an adder for it from the Svelte documentation. It's not a offline first database, which I'm looking for. Doesn't quite meet the requirements. The closest I've found to an existing ORM without inventing our own is IDB. So we'll leave that open. And Perplexity did give me the first answer of how I can create a bespoke ORM, which is still an option on the table. I'd like to avoid that if possible. Object relational mapping. So essentially, it comes out of web development where you need to interact with a data source, but you don't want to write queries in a raw query language like SQL, and you want to work with your native programming language. Like this, in this case, we're using TypeScript, but other times you might be using Ruby on Rails or Python or Java. It's the same kind of concept. You want to be working in the native programming language. So in the example of TypeScript, we have like objects. Kind of everything is an object, and objects have attributes. And that's where the O comes from. You have this object in your programming language. And I can give you an example. We'll come back to Copilot edits in a moment. But if we go to our lib folder, and I show you, for example, our enums is an example of a structure, a data structure, more or less. And then we have these types. These are more getting closer to the idea of objects. We have an exercise that has a title and some muscles that it works out. So this is, as a developer, I want to be sort of in this mindset, and I need a tool to help me just think in terms of my code and not another query language. So an ORM is just like a layer in between my code and the database that lets me get data and create data without having to sort of write database native logic, such as SQL queries or MongoDB things, like has its own kind of query language as well. So it's an abstraction. It's and when you have that abstraction, it gives you a little bit better interface. So you have more, you can say create document or create object, delete object in these verbs. And the backing service, the database behind it doesn't matter. You can actually switch them out. You can start with an IndexedDB for offline first application, but switch it out for a Firebase real-time database, something like that. So these ORMs have been around for a while, since like, I don't know, but at least 20 or more years. This concept, Ruby on Rails, was one of the big projects that had this. I think Java probably has had this concept for a while, and it continues. This concept is okay. Yeah, well, TypeScript is interesting. I haven't done a lot of it either. I'm just now getting into it. I'm usually working in Python. What kind of languages have you worked with? Have you done JavaScript, for example? Okay, so now Jim and I came back, deep research. It looked at like over, how many did it finally? Still 90 websites for me, and it came back with an answer. TypeScript ORMs with IndexedDB support for offline first apps. And then it's like writing it for me, an article. This is kind of cool. I might turn this into a blog post on my website. We'll look at that in a moment. because as I learn these things, I want to share this knowledge, and these summaries are very helpful for my learning process and then sharing with other people. That's my mission is to help people learn to build whatever your idea is. You want to make that, we'll work with some open source tools, some generative AI to help us work faster and research faster and make your ideas reality. That's the whole mission. Okay, availability, really cool. So it starts with a problem statement and it's making it like a story already. This is a great blog post and maybe even a video. While IndexedDB offers a robust solution for local storage in web browsers, its direct usage can be complex. This is where object relational mappers come in, providing a developer-friendly interface for managing data. However, most popular SQL-based ORMs like TypeORM, MicroORM, DrizzleORM, Prisma, Squiggles, Objection.js, and Bookshelf.js do not support IndexedDB. The article explores how these prominent TypeScript ORMs that do RxDB, WatermelonDB, and PouchDB. Pouch, that's the one I think we'll use. We'll delve into their features, strengths, and weaknesses. So this is already actually really good on multiple levels. Okay, Python. How long has it been since you've worked with Python? What kind of stuff did you do there? Python is quite a broadly applicable language. You can do web development, data analysis, machine learning, make scripts, like lots of cool stuff. Okay, so it's been a while. That's when I was like starting out with Python also, roughly speaking. I was reading, I think it was Python for Dummies, which to this day I'm still a dummy and I will always be, unfortunately. But I'm coping with that. But yeah, I just liked the ethos of Python. It's kind of sense of humor and the developer friendliness. So I'm using Python a lot in my daily work, and usually on these streams when I'm getting more heavy applications like full stack web applications that need a backend, Python definitely. So yeah, basically IndexedDB is a bit hard to work with and the ORM makes it a little easier. That's the whole purpose. So the offline first is an important part of it. We want this thing to run in a rainforest. As long as your device has battery, no Wi-Fi, doesn't matter. You can use and then synchronize it later. Yeah, okay, so let's do that. Before I dig into the code, I kind of want to make sure I've got a good idea of the approach I want to take, and that's where agents are very helpful. RxDB is a NoSQL database for JavaScript applications, meaning it's not using SQL query and doesn't have the relational data structures that are found. The R in ORM is even though we're not working with relational data, you might still be using an ORM just because of the origin of the word. But relation means I might have a workout that has one or more exercises in the app, or you might have a patient that has one or more medical records. Those are relational data types. And in many, if not most applications, I think relational data is like almost the way we should model our data. These NoSQL databases give us some alternative ways of modeling data. But one of the biggest, I think, selling points is that we don't have to think too hard about how we structure our data. It's very flexible. You can change the structure arbitrarily. That just means like later you'll have to think more hard about how the data and how those structures have changed over time, and make sure that your application supports all those historic data structures at runtime. So I like having a schema that I define. We'll get into that. So RxDB is offline first, real-time reactivity, flexible data replication, encryption, and cross-platform support. Node.js, React Native. Cool. All right, so it looks like the research got cut off here. This is one of the things I found from Gemini. It's a bit buggy. While it started off really interestingly, it didn't quite get the whole thing. Fortunately, the whole takeaway that I was asking for is right here. Let's take a quick look at these and then we'll get to the code. But I want to get, this data is so important to the app. I want to be on a good ground before I get too far down the road. Okay, so I'll just move this off screen and we will look in our browser over here. I don't know, should the code be on the right or the browser be on the right? It doesn't. PouchDB. I've heard of this one. Open source JavaScript database inspired by Apache CouchDB. Okay. That is designed to run well within the browser. PouchDB was created to help web developers build applications that work as well offline as they do online. It enables applications to store data locally while offline, then synchronize with CouchDB. Yeah. I don't need this at all. I just need offline first. I just need in fact, only IndexedDB. All right, so we're going to probably just do our own ORM. Hasn't had an update in a while either. RxDB. And so in a way, this is it's not offline only. You need to download. You need to open the app offline. Sync with any backend. Observable real-time queries. All JavaScript runtimes. RxDB. Made easy. Whenever your data changes, your UI reflects the new state. Real-time updates across components, browser tabs, and user devices. Cool. Browser tabs might be interesting. All major frameworks supported. We are using Svelte. Async, Docker, wait, collection, find one, foobar, exec. So this is an example of the interface you get. You have, like, you define a collection of documents. In our case, it'll be exercises. Let's see. Yeah, I have a website. Let's see, something, the chat's getting broken now. Here it is. This website's built with a really cool framework called Astro. It makes it nice to have a free website that you can host on like free hosting, like GitHub Pages. And yeah, mine is just like a static website, but I post some blog articles and I'm starting to showcase some of my online projects and online presence. And the idea that with the website is it should be the center place for all of my online activity. If you want to take this same approach, it's like a hub and spoke model. Everything is on my website and it points out to the other places that I'm connecting to, like GitHub, maybe Twitch, YouTube. And that way, if I stop using any of those, ideally I'll still have my website, even if I change my strategy. Like I recently deleted my Twitter account, for example, but I still have my website and all the other places, Blue Sky, Mastodon, for example, for microblogging. So the website's built with Astro. It makes it very fun and easy to build static websites without a server even. You don't have to have a server, but if you have a content-driven website, like a blog or whatever, Astro is a great option. So RxDB, it looks like it's a one-person project, and so let's just go with our own ORM. It's just so annoying. Oh, look at Watermelon DB, but the name is making me thirsty. Read me. Launch your app instantly. High scalability, lazy loaded, offline first. Nosbait Teams. Optional RxJS API. SQLite. Okay, so you're pointing out we need to get to the code. So I've got this prompt in Claude. And we're going to give this whole prompt over to Copilot agent. Check this out. This is the whole purpose of this live stream, basically, is to get to the code. I need to prepare, though, so thanks for your patience. I've got a prompt for Claude. Actually, yeah, we'll use Claude 3.7 Sonnet since this is a mission-critical thing. Implements the repository pattern to abstract IndexedDB operations, provides type-safe CRUD operations for exercise data, workout data. Handles database initialization and versioning. This is a big requirement. Includes robust error handling. Data models. Define TypeScript interfaces for exercise definitions. So I'm going to show it our existing enums by dragging it here. Now it's going to provide that in the context. And then our types is already here because I have the tab open. And we're just going to focus in the code layer. And I'll just make sure our types are included here. Database initialization module, version migration support, type safety, repository classes for each data store, data access service that coordinates repositories, error handling, So it can just take the whole project as a source. Yeah, that's the cool thing about projects like GitHub Copilot and Cursor AI. They are actually built into your code editor, and it just sees either the specific files you give it, or there's commands you can say, look at the workspace. And since I'm in agent mode, it'll kind of decide when to look at the whole workspace. So we'll just give it this prompt, and here it goes. Ready? So now it's using the referenced file. I gave it some Copilot instructions up here. This project uses, oh, that's no longer correct. PNPM. TypeScript requires types to be imported explicitly. When improving unit test code, run only the unit tests, since running end-to-end tests may be unnecessary. So this is some instructions. You can customize how Copilot behaves. And now it's going to generate a database types file. File search didn't return any specific TypeScript files for the project structure source lib. So now we can see it's got a couple of tabs up here. It's creating some changes here. So it created this whole file, errors, and we'll look at the types first. And what it's doing is creating a new module in my library folder. So this is interesting. I have a database, adapter, and types. And it's creating an interface that I can version the schema. These are like low-level details I'd prefer not to work with, but I've got this code assistant, so maybe it's just worth trying out. So it's got base entity, which just means like a record in a database. And by default, these will have create an update, as well as an ID, which can be a string or a number. And again, this is all stuff I wish I didn't have to handle. I suppose we're looking for an existing ORM. Okay, so now we've got this base entity being used to define a workout. Title, date, and notes. I don't need notes. Workout item entity, base entity, workout ID, exercise ID, sets, reps, weight, time, notes. I don't need notes again. This is interesting though. And then now we have options that we can pass into a query, limit, offset. So it's even going to give us pagination. I can say, give me 5 items starting from the 10th item in the records. So I can do pages of 10 items at a time. Sorting, sort direction, ascending and descending, filters. So this is all just what an ORM does and why I'd prefer to use an existing one. You said it can't take the whole project as a source. That's an interesting question, because the more you give it as context, the more information you give it as context, it can overwhelm the model. It's important to give it just the right amount of context. Okay, so now we have the repository interface. Create, update, delete, get by ID, get all. So this is all stuff that an ORM just does. And then we have error, connection failed, transaction failed, not found. Okay. Workout item repository. I mean, this is really remarkable. And it's promise-based. This is so cool. But all of this is now code I have to maintain. All this stuff in red is new code that has red squiggles. Somewhere in the thing, there's some red squiggles here and there that I just need to figure out and maintain and understand. That's the thing. An ORM, if it was already written, would just have all this done for me. While it's generating, we'll look one more time. And I'll just do a search for IndexedDB ORM, Dixie.js, and IndexedDB ORM. Maybe the ORM is the wrong word. Let's see, awesome. Awesome offline and awesome offline first. Tools, service worker, and app cache, Pinterest service workers. Can PouchDB just run only offline, so to speak? Hoodie. No backend architecture. Wow, I forgot about Hoodie. Where did Hoodie go? Did it get renamed? Oh, it is RxDB. Okay. Yeah, it's got a lot of people in chat. Okay. Offline first approach, keeping your app fully functional even without a connection. Data is stored locally on the client, seamlessly replicated to backend. I don't need the backend. Local documents. Schema validation, migration, encryption, CRDCC, all of this stuff you have to think about at some point in a project lifecycle. They have a premium model. That's unfortunate. It becomes a conflict of interest. Everything has trade-offs. Bauer. This is one of the frustrations I have with the JavaScript ecosystem. Everything is just either obsoleted or lone developer or some more freemium model. Okay. So it's surprisingly difficult to make an offline only app. Okay, let's take a quick look at our code. All right, so we've got a pretty big library here. The repositories, work item repository. And so I'll just say over here, you can say keep, and I'll continue to iterate. It's quite a big prompt, which is another reason why you can't really give it the whole repo. I should have left the migrations out, just for the minimum viable thing. But it's interesting, it is already pulling in our schemas. Our types, so that's cool. In a way, it was able to, since I passed in that data as context, it's able to build on our existing data structures and just build my repository layer. That's cool. And service, workout tracker. Some of these, I think you can just do that. No? Let's check if our implementation now resolves all the type errors. Okay, so it's noticing type errors throughout the project. Very interesting. I'll leave this on the screen and I'll be right back. Okay, cool. So it's got some ideas for future enhancements. Synchronization, workout templates, nice. Progress tracking, charts and statistics for workout progress over time, import, export data. These are actually great feature requests. Now we just used a lot of my Claude Sonnet quota, so I'm going to switch over to GPT-4o. So another thing about the GitHub Copilot agent mode is it lets you choose your model, and the chat also lets you choose models. And it's got a few more models that you can work with in chat, including Gemini. We'll create a new chat, and we may use that in a moment. Okay, so we're going to keep all the changes, and I'm going to go through and just review them. but that's quite a lot of code it wrote for us. You know, hundreds of lines of code, which shows again how complicated it is to create and maintain an ORM, and why I'm hesitant to do that. So we do have some squiggles. We may have to cast this. Yeah, so you have to just tell TypeScript what it is, string or number there. So that's good. We'll get this one to turn green as well. So we were only using so we just need type annotations to tell our language server what this is doing. And I think we need an annotation to say what return type this uses. Cool, so that one's green. And what I'll start with is unit tests. And I'm not so good. I'm really not good at TypeScript, so I need help from Copilot on this kind of stuff. These low-level details are so, geez. Okay, now we're somewhere off in La La Land here, so let's just roll those back. Whoops. Edit. Redo this. Ah, shoot. There it is. So there's just one. Oh, I see. Messed that up. Let's see. Let's see how good GPT-4o can infer the work of Claude. It wants to run the tests. We don't have any tests. Okay, so let's just commit this. This is a bit in the middle. But it's a step. Add core database implementation. All right, and this is WIP, work in progress. It's not working. So what do we have here from errors? Handle database error. So here it is, errors T. So I think if I save this, at least that'll be able to find the modules. TypeScript lab, okay. So we're going to feed this back to Claude. 3.5, and we're going to tell it, well, this is such an important one. I think it's worth it for Sonnet to take a look at the implementation here and make sure we've got this module set up correctly. Then we need to write unit tests to make sure all the behavior works as expected. That's why I wanted to break this task down into multiple steps. This level of coding is beyond my experience. Since we can't use an off-the-shelf ORM, that would have these baked in, we're using Claude to help us. So that check the errors in the project, and it's going to fix the import. Dot. Okay, yeah, it's just a local import, of course. But these ones I thought have double dot slash in front. But this was the key I was hoping it would do, is fix. So we'll wait for it to finish. Yeah, in repository TS, 7 troubles. Creating a missing barrel file. Okay. So it's going to put all the imports in one single file. So interestingly, it's able to find these TypeScript errors. I'm not sure if it's just getting them from the browser IntelliSense, perhaps. I mean, the editor's IntelliSense. Still editing. All right, so I did a bunch of edits here. We'll just keep all those. All right, and I'm going to close these all down. We're going to go one at a time. Try to resolve the red text. Which is, there's not too much now. It's looking a lot better. First index. So yeah, this one can't find module errors in the same directory, // or its corresponding declaration, type declarations. So this could be that it's not able to find those. So let's go ahead and open up errors. And errors itself has some issues. Property capture stack trace does not exist on type error constructor TS 2339. So if I just pass in this one, which is the same, and I highlight this line of code, I'll just give it the whole thing, but it should actually use my types of code, highlighted code here. Only available in V8 environments, Node.js, okay. We're running in the browser, so this doesn't make sense anymore. Actually, I'm just going to remove that. Good. I read that comment. So we'll commit these changes. It's pretty good progress in terms of getting the red text gone. This is called vibe coding. I don't know what it's doing fully. This is quite complex level of code. Framework level code, refactor database module, and improve error handling and exports. So there's just one more red squiggle, and then we'll write unit tests, and that'll give me a lot better sense that things are working correctly. So the index TS and the errors TS. I don't understand why. It's a bit opaque to me. It could be that it can't find this or that. So let's see. There's that. Ah, and then it's trying to export that. Should it do that? Maybe we can just remove this. I don't like these global export files. That's a bad pattern. or it exports everything. Creating a singleton of the database, so this is probably useful. Oh no, more red squiggles. So it fixed some and broke others. And it didn't fix the problem. Let's switch models so I don't use all my Cloud 3.7 ones. I can see that we have an error.sts file in the project that contains error handling code, but the TypeScript error suggests that there might be an issue with the file path, or that might not have might have been renamed, but no, it's in the same folder, which is a weird thing. I can see that the error.ts file exists in the correct location, error.ts, since the file exists and is in the correct place, but TypeScript can't find it. It might be a TypeScript configuration issue or an issue with the import statement. Let me check the content of tsconfig file to verify it. So check out our tsconfig, and it says the file exists with the proper configuration, module resolution settings. Let me verify the actual content of error.ts to make sure it isn't importing the symbols correctly, which is what I was thinking. The symbols might not have existed or might not have been exported. Modify the import statements in index.ts to fix the issue. Okay. Let me check if there are any errors after the change. I see the error still persists. Let me find a different approach by correcting the import path. Since we are already in the database directory, we should use a relative path from there. No problems found. Index.ts. You're right. I don't know what it did differently, but there's no diff. Was it just my language server? What? All right. Dingle dongle. I'm going to head out here in a little bit. This is very good progress. Now, to make sure I have confidence that it's working, we're going to write a few unit tests. We're also going to run our test suite real quick, just to see if everything works. And remembering I changed that one line in our repository's got a couple of errors. One line in our layout that may cause our tests to fail. Anyway, let's just do this real quick. Components. Where's the layout? This one. So let's go back to our tests, or run them all. I just run the vi tests for app. Everything is failing. Okay, so these were broken by this pull request. Okay, so just change it to abs. Well, we'll go with that. So here's the fun part. is getting the agent to fix the tests for us. So we'll go ahead and start a new conversation. Enums tests and enums. Because it'll actually run the tests and fix them in a meaningful way, such as by grouping these together. Hey, Dr. Unafraid, welcome. How are you doing? Yeah, I've been pretty good. Can't complain. Some setbacks, ups and downs, but yeah, carrying on. Trying to get back into live streaming. Yeah, how's your YouTube channel's taken off? I see you got a lot of, it's very popular and we've been posting a lot of news on there. ZJ and I were chatting about you a couple weeks ago, I think it was, hanging out on Discord. Okay, so now it's going to run through this and make sure we've got all these. It's fixing the code and not the tests. Sorry, it's fixing the tests. Wait a minute. Is it removing? What do I want it to do? I kind of wanted it to fix the enum. Yeah, I did take a long break from streaming. I tried to focus in on just on YouTube and do YouTube videos and live streams over there, but YouTube's not so good for live streaming. So I'm kind of going to, I think, be back on Twitch for live streams and then consolidate those streams for YouTube uploads and also focus on shorter form YouTube videos like tutorials and stuff. Yeah, happy to be back, and it's nice to see familiar faces. I've been checking out your YouTube, so keep up the good work there. And it's really fun. And it's good to do stuff that's inspiring, isn't it? Okay, so it just looks like, did we get the red squiggles here? Oh, my gosh. What's going on here? There we go. Good grief. So my streaming schedule now, I'm thinking Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Europe time. I might have some more free time though coming up. So we'll see next week how my schedule is going to change. And then every other Saturday might be a good option. Every other weekend I have more time where I can just kind of focus on coding and stuff like that. Yeah, not bad. Try to ease back into it though. But you're right. You're exactly right. I need a schedule to have a routine there. Cool. What's this? That's a change. Have you been doing streaming in addition to the YouTube, or what's your production schedule? Do you have like a routine? Do you publish on certain day of the week, or how does that work for you? Okay, so now it's going to run our enum tests. Okay, and it's noticing that we got some failures. So then it gets the context from the terminal, and it notices the problems or the passing ones, and it's going to fix that. Equipment data. 1 daily video, uploading shorts. Okay, cool. What are you finding is getting more engagement? The videos or the shorts, or are they about the same? And are you going for monetization? How's the progress going there? I think you need like 1,000, what is it? 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, something. It's pretty hard to get. Videos have more reach. I think so too. That's what, at least with code videos, they've been good. People have asked if I could do code shorts, but I don't think this format works where I'm showing the code like full screen. I would have to think about how to approach that. Okay, so now it's basic frameworks for Python video. Okay, yeah. I was thinking about another Python tutorial, looking back at the Wagtail blog tutorial, for example, and redoing that one, make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing based on some feedback, and update it to some significant changes in Wagtail. Okay, Dr. Interpret, it's been good seeing you. Yep, I'll look for you on Tuesday. Thanks for stopping by. So it's still... It's still doing things I'm not asking it to do. This is a problem. Okay, I'm gonna have to leave in about 15 minutes. I only wanted to fix the tests. The test failure ensure that the equipment list contains all the equipment details by verifying the implementation. That's the opposite way around. Okay, it's just this test. All right, fair enough. $14. Okay. Okay, so this one I'll just manually fix. Gotta kind of step in on this issue. And I'm gonna go to the repo and just get the actual version of the equipment list I want. The reason for this is because I don't have all this equipment. I'm making this for myself right now. And at a future date, I will extend it to include other equipment that might be found at other gyms. But in order to test the app, I just need to add the equipment from my local gym. chest, shoulders, triceps, biceps, back, lats, forearm. So okay, we got that. Abs is fine. Abdominals, abs. Quadriceps, calves. Okay, so now going the other way. Abdominals, biceps, lats, chest, glutes, hamstrings, quadriceps, or quads. Yeah, they're there. Shoulders, triceps, lumps, trapezius, or traps. Adductors, arms, neck. And I think there are some neck exercises. All right. And an enum, you can have trailing comma, right? Now, I don't know if trailing comma is a convention in JavaScript. Open Copilot edits. If I drag the enum here, I think there's like a way you can say do not change. And in order to safeguard this enums, I'm going to commit that. We'll come back here. So these are particularly good at tests because they can do just the kind of redundant work, but also it's getting very good architectural, software architectural patterns. So I'm finding success with these large language models at various levels of the software development flow. Okay, so we'll keep that, and then we'll run the tests. This is on the equipment list. So basically, let's go back here and see what else is failing now. All right, equipment data is about the only thing that's failing now. Pretty good progress. Let's go ahead and commit these. The equipment data test is not. Let's see. Let's commit this separately. And the repository, what changed? Basically, I was just getting rid of the squiggles. So that's a good change. Okay. Now, let's just double check the equipment data and the equipment data tests and to see what do we want. What's the outcome we want? Equipment data and equipment data tests. So we want to look at the equipment data, and I want these machines. These are the ones that I have in my local gym that I'm starting out with. So we want to fix the tests. Same thing, don't modify the equipment. So I just need to give it the right context. 1, 2. GPT-4o is pretty good at this. And it wants to run the tests. Okay, cool. This is a nice thing. The 4o integration was one of the first that came into the Copilot and Copilot agent. So I think it has the strongest integration and support. But it's able to run the tests and see what fails and get the failure messages from a vi test here in specific. Model wants to run them again, so it makes some changes, then runs them again to get the output and iterates on that. The test is a command or a tool the agent is using. Our page Svelte is breaking, so what did it change? All right, yeah, it's going to the right directory though, so it's trying to run that in the wrong directory. It's stuck in a loop. Okay, about to create a new session here. 5 minutes. I'm going to sign off. Localhost is already in use, so basically need to free up that host by closing out the terminal. Strange. Why is the port in use? Everything is green. Wow. So what did it change? It did, okay, it changed the test, and I changed this page. Okay, so let's double check here. So the page tests, I think, look pretty good. Minor changes, and it's got a little bit of introductory text. Cool, so we haven't actually gotten into the user interface yet, but just checking it out, and things are still working here. Generating a workout still works. These are the random workout without any, we're not doing workout tracking, and it's not generating based on previously tracked workouts because we haven't got to that step yet, but the app is still working. All the tests are passing, and we're going to write more tests next session to cover the ORM and all the functionality there. This has been a big effort already, but it's looking really good. And it's, again, not testing equipment I don't have. We'll have to cross that bridge later. I'll go ahead and open this pull request so it's available online. I can link it to this video, and I'll continue in the branch. I don't know if GitHub pull request installed here, apparently. I'll continue in the branch when I come back this evening. Workouts. Yeah, here goes. Use GitHub Copilot to summarize the changes so far. Say work in progress, I'll open a draft. Number 2, local storage with a workout history for basic UI. Create a draft pull request, signal that it's not ready for review, even though I'm the only contributor here. But just to get an idea of the size of the work that the Copilot generated for us, the amount of code, it's almost 2,000 lines of code. That also gives us a sense of how much code is involved in abstracting over a database, IndexedDB. We could use IndexedDB directly, but I think having a nice abstraction in between it is good architecture. In particular, when we're able to define kind of a schema, and with migration support, this is pretty cool. It's probably more than I needed to do. Nonetheless, Claude was able to generate that code for us and some methods that are essentially one-line interfaces to one-line function on the repo, but the service isn't a layer in between the repo and the code, so it's for decoupling purposes. So yeah, this has been a live code hangout. We've made some great progress on our exercise history, being able to store data to a local IndexedDB instance. Next step is going to be to create test coverage for this code to make sure that everything is working correctly and continues to work in the future, since we can run those automatically. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing well, and have a great day.